welcome to today's Neo Spotlight, and we're going to put the spotlight on a very unique organization, an example of the innovation economy by excellence, and that organization is Carbon Streaming. And I'm very pleased and very proud to have with me today Justin Cochrane, who is the CEO of Carbon Streaming. Welcome, Justin.
Thanks very much, Joss, and it's a pleasure to be here. So thanks for the time today.
Pleasure to have you with us. And for our audience, just a quick reminder, feel free to put questions in using the Q&A function on Zoom, and we'll make sure that they will be integrated in the discussion. Justin, before we start talking about your organization, one question that I think would be interesting to cover, and that is to the benefit of all those who don't really know the carbon or the carbon credit market. Could you tell us a little bit more about what that market is, and I've seen a lot of information around it, but what you see as the potential on the longer term for that market?
Absolutely. Thanks, Joss. So a carbon credit represents 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide. And you get issued a carbon credit if, as a project developer, you've either avoided the emission of that ton of carbon dioxide, or you've removed 1 ton of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And so that then carbon credit, which is issued by independent organizations around the world, that carbon credit gets issued on a registry, and from that registry can be sold to any buyers around the world. And so this is a market, and in particular, I'm focused on the voluntary market here, the voluntary carbon credit market. This is a market where you now have over 1,500 companies around the world that have committed to being carbon neutral. You have asset managers, investors around the world that are forcing companies to consider their carbon footprint. And so organizations around the world are voluntarily choosing to buy these carbon credits to offset their carbon emissions. And that, in effect, creates a market and a market opportunity where carbon streaming can participate. And it's a market that's anticipated to grow by 10, 15, 20 times this decade. And carbon streaming is, we believe we've got a first mover advantage in that market, which we'll talk about, but we're one of the participants in helping to accelerate the development of these carbon markets around the world.
Do you have a bit of a view on what the size of that market is? I've seen some figures which are really, impressive.
Yeah, the market today, so the voluntary carbon market today is about 250 million credits that trade on an annual basis, around, call it $5 a credit. So it's about a $750 million market today, but a market that's expected to be upwards of 50 to 100 billion in the next decade or so.
Yeah. Those are the figures that I saw indeed. And you have those who get the credits, or who, let's say, produce them to a certain degree. That's maybe another way to say it, and get them. And then you got those who buy it because they want to offset their carbon footprint, and all of that is driven by pressure of investors. And how does the government fit in all of that? Or the governments?
So on the other side of the market, you do have this regulated side of the market. Now, the regulated side of the market is a $300 billion market. So quantum's in dwarfing the voluntary market, but that regulated market is a market that's regulating power and utility companies, as an example, right? Starting to think about regulating airlines and the shipping industry, and forcing those industries to reduce their carbon footprint, lower emissions, and they buy carbon offsets or carbon allowances that are generally issued by the government to meet those requirements. And so you sort of have the two markets that trade very separately, but at the same time, you have this regulated market that's forcing carbon prices higher. Governments are trying to make it more expensive to pollute. And the way they do that is through carbon taxes and carbon credits. And so you've got this regulated market that's sort of forcing carbon prices higher, which is very positive, obviously, for our market, where we're participating in the voluntary side And through the demand, the incremental demand we're seeing from corporations around the world, and the regulated side, we just have this, phenomenal outlook, we believe, for carbon prices around the world.
Yeah. So you're telling me that the governments are doing something good for the markets?
It's a shocker, right?
But no, but it is the way that things should be going and should be evolving. I think we all realize that we're facing some serious issues, and sadly enough, we have seen it again in the last few months. But thank you for that high level view of what the carbon credit market is. Let's now zoom in on your organization, Carbon Streaming, and could you tell us a little bit more about what you are doing? What is your organization doing in this space? What is your value proposition?
Yeah, so thanks, Josh. So we set up Carbon Streaming 2 years ago when we really saw, a lack of a public markets alternative for carbon projects around the world. And so we set up Carbon Streaming to access and leverage our networks inside the public markets, to raise capital, to truly invest and partner with carbon projects around the world. And it's a totally unique model. We're doing it using the royalty and streaming business model, which has been incredibly successful and popular in both the mining and energy sectors. So taking that business model, which is my background and my expertise, and applying it in effect to a new commodity, but being this partner, having this partnership model, which again is completely unique, new to the carbon space, and being able to leverage this sort of quick access to the public markets and public capital through a listing with NEO. So you got quick access to capital and relatively low cost of capital to then use that capital and partner with these carbon projects around the world.
So tell me a little bit more. So you partner with them. What does that mean, and how are the various streams flowing of cash and carbon credits, in fact?
So the partnership model that we employ is Carbon Streaming investing with a project developer, and it might be building or creating a new carbon project, or it could be an existing project. And we've got a couple of examples of each inside of our investment portfolio today, but we invest with these project developers. So we give them the capital they need to conduct the project activities in order to prevent the emission of carbon inside these projects. So let me give you an example. We announced a perfect example today, which was a small investment, only a $500,000 investment with a Brazilian project developer, where we're giving them the capital they need to build a team and bring new landowners and project owners into what we call a grouped project, where we give them we give ERA is the organization, ERA the capital to develop this project. And ERA then, through acquiring and bringing in new landowners into their project, they prevent the deforestation or conversion of their land into agricultural use. And because they're preventing the conversion of this land into agricultural use, so like cattle farming, soybean, soy crops, they get issued carbon credits from an international organization called Verra. And those carbon credits then are available for sale, and Carbon Streaming partners with ERA to help find buyers for those carbon credits. And then through that partnership model, we share in the revenue generation from those carbon credits. So that's how Carbon Streaming earns a return for its invested capital.
Yeah. And you are doing this globally, like you are listed on NEO here in Canada, but what is your footprint? Where are you active, and is there a team in the types of projects that you invest in?
So we are invested globally. If you look at our project portfolio today, we've got one of the largest carbon projects in the world in Indonesia. We've got the one announced, the ERA that we announced today in Brazil. We've got a development project called Mar Vivo in Mexico. We've got 2 development projects in the Congo in Africa. And a pipeline of 60 odd opportunities that spread globally. So we're looking at opportunities in North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Southeast Asia. So really, very much a global footprint. And we're looking to partner with developers who've done this, who've developed carbon projects before, have a proven history of developing carbon projects before, and helping them by providing capital, helping them fulfill their sort of project development requirements and giving them the capital to partner.
Yeah. So you got a very thorough selection process. I saw one question on the Q&A, which I found quite cute, but someone seems to have removed it. There's another question I'll come back with, but the question was, why do you wear 2 watches?
So this here is a Whoop strap, which is like a fitness tracker, not actually a watch, and then an actual watch. But I do get that question a lot.
That was just a little light moment in the discussion. But so you have a clear set of selection criteria to identify those projects. Do that very thoroughly. Now, your model is to get part of the revenue when you sell those carbon credits together with the partners that you're working with. How do you sell them? Because that is another part of the business. That is, how do you identify the parties that want to buy it? How does that work? How easy is that? And where is the market?
Yeah, it's a great question, Josh. So there's several avenues for marketing and monetizing the carbon credits that are generated from the project. So the first one is going direct to the buyers of these credits. So if you look at our Rimba Raya project as an example, this is a project that's been around for 12 years and has had buyers of credits for 12 years. The likes of PwC and Delta and INPEX organization have all been massive buyers of Rimba Raya credits. So we can, of course, continue to go back to historical buyers of those credits. You also, what's quite common in this industry is the use of intermediaries who themselves have partnered with organizations around the world who are buyers of these credits. So not generators of credits, but actual buyers of credits that look to retire credits. So that's quite typical, and we get a fair amount of inbound interest from intermediaries in this market. And of course, we ourselves have a large organization to go out and find buyers of these credits. We get a fair amount of inbound requests when we announce our investments into these projects, and of course, that's part of the reason why we wanted to be public, so that we have a very visible profile for people who are looking to come in and offset their carbon footprint. So we get a fair amount of inbound, but of course we do our own outbound work in trying to find not only a buyer, but that highest marginal buyer for the specific credits that we're generating from individual projects.
Yeah. I think that there's really two big components to your business, and if you look at your organization, I think you used one term earlier, which is very key: first mover advantage, which is always important in whatever we do. But what makes you unique? What makes you different, besides, of course, being a first mover in this space? Like, what do you see as your biggest strengths and that make you feel comfortable about the success of this organization?
So a great question. The first one is we've got a small, nimble team. So we partner with consulting firms and advisors that work with us, but we're quick on our feet and we can make investment decisions very quickly. And that's incredibly important for a number of these project developers. The second one is the access to capital that I talked about. We've got quick and cheap access to capital through the public markets that none of our competitors in this space have. And that's the first mover advantage that we have. And I'd say the third thing, and probably the most important thing, is we truly have a partnership model in that we're investing and partnering with the project developers. On the one hand, where we provide the capital, we share in the upside around the carbon price and the monetization of these credits. So we're a true partner of the project developer and a partner for 20, 30, 40 years in most cases. but we can also be a partner of the buyers of these credits. So what you often see on the buy side is that companies look to buy a portfolio of credits. So they want to support not only one project, but 3, 4, 5 projects around the world. And carbon streaming will be in a unique position where we'll have this global investment portfolio. So if a buyer of a credit is looking for a cook stove credit to partner with a biofuels credit and a deforestation credit and a reforestation credit, carbon streaming will be in a unique situation where we'll actually have a portfolio of credits, and so can work with the buyer and work with the actual developers of these credits. So it's a true partnership approach, which is unlike any of our competitors in this space. And it's why we've had just incredible feedback, incredible momentum as we've built up this company over the last several years.
Yep. And the market seems to acknowledge that. Now, looking at and I always give a bit of a caveat here before I ask this question, because we have to be very careful, of course, to not say anything that is material in nature, because you would get in trouble, I would get in trouble, we would all get in trouble.
Let's avoid that. Yeah.
Let's avoid that. But what can you share about the financial outlook at a high level? And I'm talking about things that you have shared already.
Well, so we've raised $140 million in the past 12 months at carbon streaming, 115 of which still sits inside our balance, inside our bank account today. We've got a pipeline of hundreds of millions of dollars of opportunities that we're looking at. And so, frankly, I would be very disappointed if we didn't have another handful of investments that we're announcing over the next 6 to 12 months. Of course, our goal is to keep diversifying and building up our investment portfolio. I think we're well capitalized. We've got a tremendous team that's executing and reviewing investment opportunities, and that pipeline of opportunities today is over $600 million in size. In fact, I think it's a bit larger than that, 60 odd opportunities. So we've got a very active pipeline of opportunities, a great team, and we're well capitalized to take advantage of it. So we're planning on acquiring the equivalent of 20 million credits per year. By the end of this year, we're looking to acquire 20 million credits, which would make us one of the largest players in the voluntary carbon credit markets. And by the end of 2023, push that to 50 million credits and 100 million credits by the end of 2025. So we've got ambitious growth plans, which is why we need the capital markets to be our partner here, and a phenomenal team that's going to help us execute on that plan.
Yeah, you talked a bit about competition, and if you look at where you are today, I think we covered quite a few elements and components, whether it's your first mover advantage on the way you raise capital, whether it's the quality of the team, whether it's the partners, that are all clearly, wind in your sails and good news. What do you see around you as the concerns or the risks? Where do you see competition? Do you see competition evolving, doing things differently? The first mover is an advantage. You quickly get, of course, other people that are going to look at you and say, "Oh, we got to try this also." What would be your concerns?
Yeah, I mean, we will certainly see some competition. We think we obviously believe it's a tremendous model, and there will be copycat businesses, and we've already seen, the beginnings of that with a few organizations. This is a market, when you look at the global Paris Agreement commitments, that needs $10 trillion of investment to get anywhere close to those commitments. So there's lots of room for competition. So that doesn't scare me, and in fact, it can bring a bit more interest into the space and provide more opportunities for carbon streaming. I think in general, it's of course a sector in carbon credits and carbon taxes where we have a lot of government support, regulatory support. That can always change, but I see that as not likely to change. I think we've got wind in our sails, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Of course, some of the competition that we experience is the corporate buyers of these credits going direct to the project developer.
I was going to ask that question. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for a dozen reasons, which we probably don't need to get into, but for a dozen reasons, I think we're always going to be a better partner than partnering directly with the buyers of these credits, because we offer upside relating to the carbon price and the carbon markets that the buyers of those credits wouldn't, because their incentives are not aligned, ours are. But we see competition from the direct buyers. We'll see other royalty and streaming companies that come and play in this market. There's always regulatory risk. One of the things that I from the opposite viewpoint here is these projects tend to be what I'd consider low risk projects. They're not mining assets. We're not extracting anything. We're not drilling. We're not mining. These carbon projects are generally protecting. If you think of a forestry project, they're protecting an area of forest. So the actual credits are generated from doing nothing, right? Not cutting down the trees. So from a project risk perspective, I think we're on the low end of that risk spectrum. Yep. But of course, governments, there's always regulatory risk, which we can't avoid.
Yeah, no. But I think it's a fascinating commodity from that perspective, because, and I think it's something to stress to the nth degree, that is that the risk at the level of the commodity itself is almost inexistent, which is quite fascinating when you think about it. When we look at, let's talk maybe a little bit about the way forward. So you mentioned, of course, your objectives to grow your portfolio and to make larger and larger investments on a yearly basis going forward. Are there any other elements when you look at your future strategy that you can share, or things that are part of your plans? An obvious example that I could bring forward, but that's the way my brain goes, being an exchange. Is there a marketplace opportunity to consider? Is that something you would think about, or are there other ideas that you guys have, and again, that you feel comfortable to share, of course?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for us, when we think about the way we built carbon streaming and our investment philosophy is not only what I've previously commented about, just building that investment portfolio and acquiring 20, 50, 100 million carbon credits on an annual basis, but also focusing on partnering with projects that truly make a difference around the world. So these are projects that we call co-benefits in this industry, where not only are they saving a ton of carbon or removing a ton of carbon from the atmosphere, but they're also benefiting the local communities. And so I didn't want to gloss over that fact, because it's incredibly important from our investment committee and our investment philosophy is that we are partnering with projects that are going to make a difference in the lives of the local communities where the projects are based. And also with protecting biodiversity. When you think of these forest conservation projects, protecting endangered species and species that are on the watch list, the UN watch list. So, and that's the fascinating thing about these projects is that they can do that. So not only, again, help us meet our climate goals, but also develop sustainable economies around the world and protect species and have a true impact on the people and the countries that we're operating in. But then sort of going back to your question, Josh, when we think about what does the opportunity set look like for carbon streaming, just beyond acquiring carbon credits, what's fascinating about this industry is it is going to change materially over the next 5 to 10 years as the interest in carbon credits and players around the globe start taking notice. We've already seen a dramatic increase in price transparency, for example, on the value of carbon credits. That's changed materially just in the last couple of years and continues to. There are carbon blockchain companies and carbon exchanges that have developed. We're looking at partnering with a carbon ETF as an example that would create an exchange traded fund. Carbon streaming itself we've looked at and are committed to looking at a US listing to help improve and combine our listing efforts with the NEO, which has just been tremendous, with a US listing to provide that access to capital. So there's going to be tons of opportunities, I think, for carbon streaming, and this market will change a lot over the next couple of years, and we're excited about what that means for the company.
Thank you. Which takes me to what I always see as a key question. When I'm an investor and I'm looking at the organization, and you had a pretty interesting ride since the date of listing. Should I invest? Should I invest now? Should I have done it earlier, or should I wait a little bit longer? Do I need to see more? And if your answer is yes, you should look at it now. Why is that? And this also allows me to relate or bring in a question that was put forward. Do you think the company is still undervalued?
So tremendous question, and the simple answer is yes. And why invest with carbon streaming? Invest with carbon streaming because, as I said, we're extremely well capitalized today. We've raised a lot of money this year, and that capital that sits on our balance sheet will allow us to execute a number of streams here over the next 6 to 12 months. So I anticipate some very positive news in the next 6 to 12 months from the investment pipeline. At the same time, we've seen a big movement in carbon prices just this year. And voluntary carbon prices are still trading at a fraction of the regulated market, roughly 10% of the average regulated price. And we expect that gap is going to continue to close over the next several years. So not only have we developed our investment portfolio to have great leverage to the carbon price, and it will continue to always have great leverage to the carbon price, there's going to be lots of new investments and really exciting investments that I believe investors will be incredibly supportive of. And as I said, those are globally oriented, some great ones in Canada, the US, Europe, that I believe investors will be tremendously excited about. And that leverage to the carbon price and the free cash flow that will start generating from the carbon that we've already locked up inside our investment portfolio and will continue to do. We get to redeploy that capital into new opportunities. We can start paying a dividend. We can do some really exciting things for shareholders. And so we still believe there's tremendous upside. And as we think about listing this into the US market as well, to provide a new marketplace for demand for the company's stock, we think all of these things will be incredibly positive for the share price going forward.
Sounds like it's the right moment based on everything that you say. We have 1 minute left, and I got a question which I find quite funny. I think I said to you I would not ask you that question, but now it's coming from the Q&A session. Why did you decide to list with us and not on one of the old school exchanges? Oh, did I just give a bias here?
And it's a very good question. And what I will say is, what we found with the NEO when we first reached out to you, Joss, and some members on your team, is that we found the NEO just incredibly responsive, incredibly easy to work with. And to be honest, I've been running public companies or involved in public companies for over the last 12 years now, and our experience with NEO has been far and away better than any of my previous experiences with other exchanges. I think you guys have done an absolute tremendous job. I would say this whether I was speaking to you or not. I really believe the NEO has been the right choice for carbon streaming. It also, as a senior exchange, provides us an easier avenue when we think about listing into the US. And I actually believe, like we are partners with our project developers, the buyers of our carbon credits, I actually believe NEO thinks of their relationship with carbon streaming from a partnership perspective, and I think that's pretty unique in this industry, and it's been a tremendous experience, like I said.
Thank you for those very nice words. And I was thinking earlier when you were talking about, the projects that you have, and that is also about impact that you have on people, improving their lives. it must be extremely rewarding to run an organization that is both, proposing a very exciting business model that will generate quite interesting returns, together with doing what is right. And that feels a little bit, in a funny way, to what we also like to do, and that is why doing what is right and then turning it into a successful business model, very rewarding and great to have a company like yours. And I just see a comment that came in, congratulating you for the fantastic work you're doing. That's what I want to say to you also. Congrats for what you're doing. It is absolutely fascinating. We feel extremely honored to have you on board with us. And yes, you can definitely continue to count on us as a partner going forward in whatever you do. Justin, I think this was very interesting. I think you gave some great context around both this new emerging industry, its potential, and your organization. And thank you very much for that. Thank you on behalf of the audience. And if anyone in the audience has other questions, feel free to send it out to us, or directly, of course, to Justin and his team, and we'll make sure that you will get answers back. Justin, thank you for your time, and looking forward to following your journey of growth and success.
Well, thanks again very much for having me, Joss, and really for the partnership. The NEO has been a great partner. So thanks for the time today, and very excited about what the future has in store for both carbon streaming and for the NEO. So
indeed. Also want to thank our audience for their participation and their attendance. And this discussion will be published shortly on social media for those who were not able to participate, or for those who want to listen to it again. Thank you to everyone, and see you all very soon again. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.